Hey everyone, welcome back to Widget Wisdom. In today's episode, we are diving deep into Flutter forms and how to manage user input. Forms are an integral part of almost every app, whether you are collecting login details, creating surveys, or handling payment information. We will explore how to build forms, validate user input, and submit data efficiently in Flutter. By the end of this lesson, you will have all the tools to create user-friendly and secure forms for your applications. We will work through examples that cover everything from text fields to advanced validation logic. So let's get started. So you may think that what is a form in Flutter and how do we start using it? So the form widget in Flutter provides a structured way to group input fields like text fields, checkboxes, and dropdowns. It also manages validation and submission of input data. So let's start by creating a basic form with the single text field and submit button. We will use TextFormField and form widgets to accomplish this. So here I have opened my project and now I have come to this my home page, and then here add the body property inside the scaffold widget. Then here add a center widget which will have a child as form. And as I have told you, form is the collection of text fields, checkboxes and dropdown. So we are going to add that. So here first add the child, then add the column. Then for children, here first add the text form field. Then here add the decoration property, and here add input decoration, and for label text add the enter your name string. Then also create an elevated button, and for its child add the text widget as submit. Now if you save the code and run the application, then you can see on the screen we are seeing a text field with the elevated button. So this is how you can implement form in Flutter. So this was the very basic implementation of forms in Flutter. So in this code we have a basic form with one input field for a name and a submit button. We have added a simple text form field for user input and an elevated button for form submission. Notice how we have wrapped everything inside a form widget. Now let's move to the second part. So here we are going to handle user input using the text form field widget, which is designed to capture text input from users, and this widget includes several default useful features such as validation and custom input decoration. Now let's also add a hint text for this text form field. So inside the input decoration, here add hint text and then add name, and for border add the outline input border. Then this is not looking very good, so come to the column widget and here add the main axis alignment as center. Now it's looking fine. Then here let's also add the keyboard type. So for that add the keyboard property and then add the text input type dot text. Because we are telling the user to enter their name, then the keyboard type should be text. But if you don't define this, it's okay, because by default keyboard type is text. Okay. Now we are going to handle the text entered by the user. So we need to create a controller for this. So for that, come above here and here create a text editing controller and name this as name controller, because we are using this controller for storing the name. So add that. Then come inside this text form field and here add the name controller inside this. Then come to the elevated button and here let's print the enter text by user. So here I'm just adding name controller dot text. Now if you save the code and run the application, then you can see in the console when I tap onto this button after entering the text, then in the console I can see user input as widget wisdom, because I have entered the widget wisdom in the text form field. Now let's see how we can validate the user input. So one of the most crucial aspects of forms is input validation. Let's talk about how we can validate user input in Flutter using the validator property in text form field. So for that, come inside the text form field widget and here add the validator property, and then this will give us the value entered by the user. So here add that. Then here add a check that if value is null or value is empty, in that case return name cannot be empty. Then also add another check. Then let's also add the condition for the special character. So here I'm adding that if value contains @ or if value contains these square brackets, entered name by the user is not valid. So here I'm going to return enter a valid name. And if both the conditions are not true, in that case just simply return null here. Then after adding the validator, come above here and here create a form key by adding the global key and define the widget type as form state. Now add this key for this form widget. Now come inside this elevated buttons on pressed method and here add a check that if form key, then its current state and then validate it. So it will run that our validator function which we have added for the validation of this form. So here we need to add this condition. Then here just simply add a scaffold messenger if the entered detail in the forms are correct. So here we are going to say snack bar and then we are just simply say processing data. Now if you save the code and run the application, and then if I don't enter anything inside this text form field and I press onto the submit button, then you can see here this is giving the error that name cannot be empty as we have written in the validator method. And if I add the sign inside this, then it's saying that enter a valid name because we have defined this string message inside our validator method of text form field. Now this is how you can use the validator in Flutter. Now let's assume a case that if user press onto the submit button, then you want that your text form field should be empty. So you can also do this. So for that, come inside the onPressed method of this elevated button and here add the form key, then add the current state, then just reset it. And don't forget to add the null checker after the current state. Now if you save the code and run the application, and here let's say I have entered the widget wisdom. Now if I press on to the submit button, then here I'm seeing a toast message which is saying processing data because we have entered the valid name. Then our text form field is empty because we are resetting it if the user entered the correct detail. So this is how you can reset the text form field in Flutter. Now that we have covered the basics, let's take it a step further by introducing some advanced feature like form focus and auto validation. So a focus node allows you to control the focus of input fields manually, ensuring a smooth experience when navigating through form fields. So for adding the focus node, come above here and here create a focus node variable. Then come inside the text form field and here add the newly created focus node variable inside this. Then come above here and here create the init state and then add the listener on this focus node. Okay, after that create a new method as setFocus. So we will use this method for setting the focus manually. Okay, so inside this method we will request for focus. Okay, now come inside the onPressed method of elevated button and from here let's just comment out this and from here call the setFocus method. So basically here when user will tap onto this button, then the focus will automatically shift to this text form field. So let's run the app and save the application to test this out. Now press onto this submit button and you can see the focus is come to this text form field. So this is how you can work with the focus node in Flutter. Few minutes back we have talked about the validation in forms. But now assume a case that inside your form there are 10 text fields and user need to enter the details on these 10 text fields. Now let's say user have entered the wrong details or wrong format of data in 4 to 5 text field. Now user don't know that he has entered the wrong data until he don't press onto the submit button. So probably you don't want to give that much of hectic to your user that enter the detail first then press the button so that we will let you know that you have entered the wrong details. So for fixing these things, auto validation comes into the picture. So auto validation provides instant feedback to user as they type. So let's see this by a simple example. So for that, come inside the text form field and here add the auto validation mode, then add the auto validation mode and then here add the interaction type. So here add the on user interaction. So this method will tell the Flutter that validate the enter text by user after every word he type or remove from this text field. Then come to the elevated button and from here uncomment this commented code. Now if you save the code and run the application, then let's say I have entered the special character here and as you can see after just I have typed the character on side this field, this gave us error that enter a valid name. And if I add anything else apart from the perfect thing, it won't give the error. So this is how auto validation works in Flutter. Now to wrap up things, let's build a simple registration form that captures the user's name, email and password. And we will add validation for all fields and submit the data when all fields are valid. So for that, come above here and here create a new stateful widget as registration form. Then call this widget from the my app. Now come inside the build method and from here remove this empty placeholder and here add a scaffold widget, and for body add a form widget. Then come above here and here create a form key for this form. Now add this key for this form. Then for child add a column widget and sets its main axis alignment to center. Then add the children widget and here add the text form field, and for decoration add the label text. Then for validator, here add the value and here check that if value is null or value is empty or value contains this @ then please enter a valid username. So this is the case for username. And if none of the above condition is satisfied, return the null from here. Now just add the text form field again and again add the input decoration and here add the label text as email. Then set the keyboard type for email address and then add the validator. So for email, value cannot be null, value cannot be empty, or value should contain @ because in the email we always have @. Then here we will say that enter a valid email if the above conditions satisfy, and if none of the conditions satisfy, we will return a simply null. Now just copy the above text form field and here add the label text as password and then add the obscure text property. So this will hide the password from the user. Okay, so make it true. Then for validation, here add the length check that password's length should be greater than to 6. And here we will say enter a valid password. Now add an elevated button, and for child add a text widget which will say register. Then for the onPressed method, here add the if, then form key, current state and validate. And then here we will submit the data. Now if you save the code and run the application, but this won't look so much good. So let's beautify this. So for that, wrap this column widget inside a padding widget and add the padding of 10 from all the side. Then come inside the input decoration property and here add the border as outline input border, and then add this border to all the text form field. Okay. Then between these text form field, also add a sized box because there is no size available and this is looking so cumbersome. So for that, here add a sized box which will have a height of 10, then copy this and add here and then here. Now if you save the code and run the application, then it's looking a bit beautiful. Now let's first enter the wrong details. So here I'm adding the username with the @ and I'm entering the email address without an @ and password with the 3 length. Now if you save the code and run the application, then you can see we are seeing error in the all field because we have entered the wrong detail. So let's fix this by removing the @ here, by the adding @ to email and password length to 6. Now if you save the code and run the application, then you can see we are seeing no error. So this is how you can use form widget inside Flutter with various property as I have explained you. And there are few more other properties which you can explain by yourself. So you have learned how to build forms in Flutter, handle user input with text fields, validate the input and message data submission. So forms are a crucial part of any app, and with Flutter's powerful form handling widgets, you can create dynamic and user-friendly forms. Don't forget to apply these concepts to your own projects. In future videos, we will explore more advanced form features, including integrating form submission with backend servers. So thanks for watching Widget Wisdom. Make sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for future video, and I'll see you in the next video.